All right, so my name is Brandon Navom, and this topic is called From Slacktivist to Activist, How to Get Out of the Echo Chamber. So all of these, for me, like all of these different topics kind of blur together, and I never really know what anybody's going to talk about and how to differentiate these things. But what I want to go over here is how to efficiently and effectively set goals for increasing liberty, right? So set goals, create a strategy, and then execute on that strategy. And you may be wondering, like, gee, how much is this really going to apply to me? But I guarantee if you give this next 45 minutes your full attention, you'll be enlightened, and I think you'll find something that will apply to you. So whether you care about a certain ballot initiative, whether you're trying to get your local government to stop doing something oppressive, you want to run for some kind of an elected position, or you're going to engage in some kind of activism or civil disobedience. There's something in this presentation for everybody, and it's kind of long, so I'm going to kind of motor through it. But if you guys do have any questions, just kind of throw them out there, and with the caveat, if I have time, I'll answer them. So a little bit about me. I'm a senior software systems engineer. I work for believe it or not, a federally funded research and development center. I design really large, complex software systems, do a lot of high-level architecting. I have a Master's of Science in Engineering Management from Tufts University. So I'm used to solving the big problems, and I've been trained to kind of, with this systems approach, to kind of look at big problems, break them down, and solve them. I was also a delegate for Massachusetts to the Republican National Convention, which is where I got this ridiculously large lanyard that I love just wearing around to show that I'm really important and everything. I think they did it because the average age of the normal delegates is 80 or something, so they needed something big enough that they could tell I was from Massachusetts. But it's kind of interesting that Ron Paul got 8% of the popular vote, yet we took around half the delegation. And so there were 41 total delegates from Massachusetts, and so what our goal was to get 21 of them, so we would actually have a majority of the delegation, and we would be able to elect the chair of the delegation. So we would have one of our guys at the mic for Mitt Romney's home state on the floor of the RNC. And so what we did, because 27 of them were decided by the actual election, and the rest were superdelegates that were decided by the state party. And because we didn't control the state party, we couldn't get those. We said, okay, let's target those congressional delegates, right? Massachusetts actually has a caucus on a per congressional district basis where they decide who the delegates are going to be, 3 from each congressional district. So we said, hey, let's flood those caucuses and let's get our people elected as delegates. This actually worked really well, and the end result was we got around half the delegation. And now I say around half the delegation. If you look at my little math there, out of the 27, we had between 19 and 21 delegates that won. And I say between because they decided at the last minute, after they realized we had won and we could have potentially taken over the entire delegation, they decided to do some things like not counting provisional ballots, making people sign some affidavit that wasn't included in the process, and just basically illegally disqualifying a bunch of our delegation. But, and I was actually the only one who didn't sign it and didn't get disqualified because I was actually on a business trip for the Air Force, and I said, I was on some really secret national security thing, and go ahead and disqualify me, and they decided to give me a little bit more time. But we were actually, and after they did this, we actually got a few back of our legally disqualified delegates by shaming them in the media. But, what did we do? How did we achieve this success? We saw an opportunity, we put together a step-by-step plan, created the things that we needed to achieve this, and then executed on that. The biggest thing that we had to do was, actually, this is one of my favorite quotes of all time. It's by Sun Tzu, and it basically says that, in order to succeed, you have to know yourself and your enemy. If you know yourself and you don't know your enemy, you have a 50-50 chance of succeeding. If you don't know yourself or your enemy, you'll fail every single time. If you know yourself and your enemy, you will always succeed. And this is one of the big parts of strategy, is knowing yourself, knowing what motivates the people you're trying to beat, and then figuring a way around it. And so what did we have to do? Plan, see an opportunity, see what we could go after. Prepare, see all the components that we needed to assemble to enable our plan, and then just execute on it. I say a dream is a plan with a plan is a dream with a logical path to it, right? You have this goal, I want liberty, right? And we always say, well, people will have this big vision. I want a society with no government. But we don't have any way, we never take that step to say, all right, well, how do I get there? What steps do I need to do to enable that? After you have that step-by-step plan, you go and you say, what do I need for each step of the plan, right? And then you go about creating, building, assembling those pieces. Now, when the biggest thing we needed was being a software engineer, I actually built my own call from home system. So what we did was we went and we got all of the people who had ever donated to Ron Paul for the state, right? We called them up, we voter ID'd them. I had a database with a web app, and we had something where all of our delegates could go in and all of our volunteers could go in, call all of those people up, say, hey, this is what's going on, will you come to these caucuses? It tracked it in the system, and basically we went through the entire voter list, made sure everybody knew what they had to do, and then the day before the caucuses, we gave them a get out the vote and said, hey, just a reminder, you have to come out tomorrow, this is the big day. So it literally was just, having the infrastructure built to achieve what we wanted. Amateurs talk about tactics, but professionals talk about logistics. You need to understand, we have, a lot of big picture thinkers, right? And I'm one of those big picture thinkers. This is what we want. This is what our end goal is. But you can be right, you can have the right concept, but getting there is all about logistics. What do I need at every step of the path in order to be successful?
Brandon?
Yes?
Before you leave that, would you explain the difference between tactics and...
The difference between tactics and logistics? Okay. So tactics are your strategy, right? You say in a campaign, you'll say, here's my strategy, what I'm going to do. A strategy might be, I'm going to win by getting new voters, right? Logistics are, well, gee, how am I going to actually go out? Where am I going to get the volunteers? Where am I going to get the people? Where am I going to get the registration form? How am I going to identify these new voters? And how am I going to get them all signed up and the forms back to wherever they have to go, their town clerk? That's the logistics, right? Strategy is big picture. How am I going to go achieve this? Logistics is how do I implement this? So I can't tell you how much data is important. I'm a software engineer. I love data. Data is involved in everything I do. If you guys have, whether you're building an organization, running for a campaign, whatever, data is critically important, along with lists, websites, and all of these other things. Lists. Keeping volunteers, right? These are the people who are actually going to come out and do stuff for you. Your donors, people who are going to actually give you money. And then either your voter or your target lists, right? These are the people that I have to influence. And understanding how these people are different and how you have to handle them differently is critically important, right? You have some politician tries to pass something limiting your gun rights, right? You need to, in a moment's notice, have an email list of all your Second Amendment people who are going to all do something. They're going to all email, call their state rep, whatever it is, right? And you need to treat these differently. And then after you have all of everything set up, all the pieces in place, it's just a matter of executing, right? And make sure that you have everything in place, and make sure you have your people are all on the same page. They understand what's going on. They've been given clear instruction, and they know what to do. And most importantly, give people that you trust, people who are good at executing, people who are good leaders. This, if you are not a South Park fan, you may not get this right away, but this happens so many times in the liberty movement. There are a lot of people who will just kind of say, all right, I have an idea. And you say, oh, what are you going to do? Well, I'm going to go drive without a license. And you say, okay, why are you going to do that? And they say, liberty. And I'm say, okay, well, how are you going to get from your specific action to liberty? And the reference was in South Park, there were these underwear gnomes, and they said, like, phase 1 is collect underpants, phase 2, question mark, phase 3, profit. And this is what we have to do, is we have to bridge this gap, and we have to say, okay, you want to do some, you want to do some action, okay? How do you get there? How do you get to liberty? What is your end goal? If you've ever seen The Matrix, this is in the second or third movie, where Smith is taking over and he's infecting everybody. And he gets to the point where he finally meets the Oracle, which is like his big conquest, the thing he has to do. And he comes in, and there's like 4 of them there, and he's going to turn her into one of him because he's a virus. And she's just kind of sitting there. And he says, you're the Oracle. You can see everything. Why are you here? Why are you sitting here? If you can see the future, why wouldn't you have just run away? And since you didn't, it means that you were here deliberately. You're deliberately sitting there. You have purpose. You're there with thought, with purpose. And this is what we have to do. We have to be the Oracle. We have to have everything we do. You have to ask, for what purpose and to what end? Okay? It can't just be, I'm going to do X, and then somewhere down the road, liberty is going to happen. Selling liberty. Again, all of these things are critically important, especially when you get down into having Facebook, having communications, and having other mechanisms, email lists to reach out and grab your people. 2 things you have to understand. 1, you're not normal. And it's okay, I'm not normal either. And 2, know your audience. there's too many times where we grab somebody and think that they're going to sit around for an hour talking about liberty. They're going to watch some 3-hour video on YouTube, or they're going to read Atlas Shrugged, this giant book. I mean, the average person couldn't give a damn about, business cycle theory. They just want to know, how is this going to affect my day-to-day life? So when you're talking to people, you have to understand how they think and what's important to them. I talked with someone who's running for state rep, and again, people couldn't give a damn about the Federal Reserve, but you know what they care about? They care about, when they go to the grocery store, that they can't afford all of the food that they used to. So that's what matters to them. So know your audience when you're talking to people. So when you engage someone, again, you can't have this 3-hour lecture where maybe you'll get to a point eventually. There are 3 stages to any conversation you should have with anyone about liberty. 1, the hook, something short, okay? 30 seconds to 2 minutes, something to engage somebody, get them interested, and want them to hear more from you. Once you've done that, clearly and concisely list some of your major points. And then third, have a close with a call to action, right? Whether it be, hey, there's some event that's going to be happening next week. Go to this website and sign up, and most importantly, get their information. You may talk to somebody and they may be all excited to hear the things you're trying to tell them, but you know what? People have lives. We get bombarded by so many messages. People forget to go to the website and sign up. If you get their contact information, you can hound them until they respond. Toastmasters. I actually, the first time I actually went to a Toastmasters was at this conference last year. And I decided, hey, I need to go and practice, learn how to craft my message, right? Because the problem is, you can have the greatest idea in the world, but if no one else can understand it, if it's not put in a way they can understand, in a format they can understand, it's never going to go anywhere. It's never going to be anything better than an idea. It's never going to get put into practice. My entire master's degree was trying to teach the techies how to speak the business language, because the best ideas weren't getting funded in engineering because they're two different worlds, and they could never even talk to each other on the same language. So learn how to craft your message. Be sharp, be to the point. I was coming back from DC from a training, and I was riding in the vehicle with another Liberty guy who had gone down to this 2-day training. And I said to him, I've heard a lot of talk about, homeschooling and, why is everybody so upset about public schools? And so he kind of said, he was homeschooled, and he kind of hemmed and hawed and kind of said some stuff and didn't really make too much of a point. But the interesting thing, this guy was a lawyer. His entire job revolved around making logical arguments in front of people. And he couldn't tell me in a 12-hour bus ride home why public schools were bad. So this is something we have to work on. They have what they call an elevator pitch, right? It's what is the point in 30 seconds? When someone comes up to you on the street, whether they interview you, you have to be able to have that 30 seconds. This is why this is important. This is the major point in the 30-second, in the 2-minute, in the 5-minute, in the 10-minute version. I'm going to try something here. Actually, you know what? This is, what not to say. I don't know if you guys ever saw this. this guy who like drones on forever, and they show a bunch of stuff that Liberty people do while tabling. And so I'm just going to skip that because I'm pretty sure I'm behind. Media. I actually was at this conference last year, and it was like a Sunday. I was really hungover, and I really just wanted a spot to sit down. And so I went into one of these rooms, and somebody was talking, and I was like, wow, this guy is really great. He was talking about media. And what? Okay, I got a lot more stuff to get through. And he went through, and he said, basically, make like, if you're gonna have an event, you know, do like a press release and send it to all of the media people. Because, like, for example, like the Boston Globe, they went, their political department went from like 20 people down to like 4 people, right? And if you can do their job for them, like they're much more likely, if you just write a press release, they're much more likely that it's gonna actually get published. And what you do is you say, oh, well, we're gonna do this at this time, throw in your own quote, right? And then tell a little bit about your organization. And chances are they're gonna do it. I mean, if you don't want media misquoting you, you control the narrative. You put your best quote in. You know, we always worry about them going to the one crazy guy in the tinfoil hat that they always find who says the most outlandish thing. And so if you don't want that happening, you craft the narrative. And then if it doesn't get published, after, send it out again and change all the "we will be here" to "we were here," right? And send it out again, and they'll might publish it saying, hey, this event happened. And so, again, if you want, you have to control the narrative. And so I know a lot of people kind of snicker at this. I don't know why. People say like, oh, you know, they don't want to resort to the same tactics that everybody else uses. They say, oh, the mainstream media are a bunch of whores. Well, you know, they are, but they might as well be your whore. Emotional arguments. I don't know if I can get this to play. 1 second, folks. Let me see if you guys can hear this. I know, hold on. So this is, if I can get this to play, I want to ask you guys if you can tell what this is for, because this was actually a great example of an emotional argument. And this is something that, you know, we as libertarians are all generally thinkers, not feelers. And we need to start having a better way of capturing those arguments. So, let me see if I can actually do this. Okay. 1 second.
It's time that we get out and make that last crucial conversation.
Can you guys hear this?
We need to get our rights back. We need to get our state back. It's absolutely crucial.
Can anybody hear this? Okay, hold on. Oh, you know what? Hold on.
Getting our vote, maybe voting
Okay.
for the first time. It's about
Okay, it's more important that you hear it, because this is...
time that we get
Can you
out
hear it?
and make that
No?
last crucial conversation. To really make those votes count. We need to get our rights back. We need to
Okay.
get our state back.
Okay, we'll skip it. Sorry. Oh, actually. So yeah, I was actually going to embed these in my PowerPoint, and wonderful Microsoft made an update to change that, so I couldn't. But anyways, so we need to do a much better job of, we sit around at this conference as well as many others and talk about the different logical arguments. And what we lack is the whole other half of the emotional arguments. And now I say, I'm not the guy to be making these arguments. Believe me, you can ask any of my ex-girlfriends. I am not the guy to be making these arguments. But somebody should. And, ladies, I think, maybe you could do a better job. Yeah, don't look at me like that, Lisa. Yeah. I saw this guy, I believe it was at a regional Students for Liberty conference, who runs a website called Bleeding Heart Libertarians. And he gave this speech about how we need to make better emotional arguments. And he proceeded to give this speech in the most cold and callous manner possible, talking about desolate, ice-swept plains and all of these things about how we need to have better emotional arguments in the most just robotic fashion on the face of the planet. So again, I'm not the guy to do it, but I know that, I can say, hey, I'm not the guy to do it, but this guy isn't either. And, I can tell if you give a speech and at any point in time, you use the word deontological in what's supposed to be an emotional argument, you're doing it wrong. So, the echo chamber. This is kind of the crux of what we're doing. Is, we have, whether it be online or whether it be at these conferences, we all seem to just want to get into these little microcosms where we're just bouncing ideas off of each other, and we're just, arguing with, the person who is like 1 degree away from us, that, our brand of anarcho-capitalist, crypto, agorism is better than their, left-leaning, socialistic anarchism. When what we really need to do is we really need to be going out and getting ideas and getting ways where we can reach out, grab people, and bring them in. So if you're out here and you find yourself, engaging in like one of these 3-hour hallway conversations with somebody, you're doing it wrong. What you should be doing is, instead of arguing with that person who is right next to you saying, no, the ball's on the 1-yard line. No, it's on the goal line. Well, guess what? Obama is taking the ball and he's running the other way with it. And we are just sitting here in this little microcosm. And you know what? The reality of it is government is getting bigger. Your liberties and your freedoms are getting smaller. And it's getting worse. And what we need to do is we need to say, stop. Let's stop fighting about, these little tiny differences. And let's at least get the government to stop infringing upon our liberties. Stop getting bigger. Stop eroding more and more of our freedoms. How many times have you gone to, an event, right, where you're supposed to be handing out flyers, you're supposed to be doing something, and the people, you're supposed to be tabling, right, and the people, your volunteers will sit there and they'll be in a discussion talking with each other, right? There's millions of asleep individuals who are just going about their daily lives, head down, just walking. And instead of trying to go out and connect with some of these people, instead of trying to bring these people in, what do? Your 3 volunteers are sitting there having a discussion with each other. This is what we have to stop. Instead of preaching to the choir, we should be growing the choir, right? You shouldn't be here to affirm or invalidate your own brand, your own ideological beliefs within libertarianism. You should be learning how to go out and grab more people and bring them in, right? Look at this. This is Porkfest 2008. Look at how it grows every year. Look at how, instead of preaching to the choir, let's make the choir bigger, right? So, you guys should all, I'll make you a deal. I'll come back here and I'll speak next year if you guys all go out and get 2 more people to come back and listen to me next year. While we're at it, let's stop, hating on the people on the top when there are people out there on the bottom who are really trying to take away your liberties. They're trying to make government bigger. They're trying to make government control every aspect of your life. And if we have these ideological arguments of, oh, I disagree with this person who's 99% with me, but that last 1%, we're never going to get anywhere. And the people on the bottom are going to continue to take away our freedom. Campaigns. This is a little bit of the meat. And I will say you will need all of these things for your campaign. Again, I'm all about data. I mean, have I talked about the importance of lists, the importance of data? The first thing you should be doing is taking a look at you can actually go and pull the voting record in your district, right? And what you want to do is calculate the swing, right? So this is if you're a Republican, it's the best a Republican has ever done, minus the best a Democrat has ever done, and hopefully that's somewhere in the middle, right? Because if you're in Cambridge, Massachusetts, and a Republican, the best they've ever done is 15%, and the worst they've ever done is 5%, well, you're in between 15% and 5%. That doesn't sound like a recipe for victory for me. There are 2 types of campaigns: an educational campaign and a campaign you're going to want to win. And the thing is, you need to know which one you're going to run before you run it. I started a little organization called Software Engineers for Liberty. And what we're trying to do is actually, people like myself, create the things that you're going to need to handle the data, to analyze this, to run a campaign. So if you are a software engineer, please stick around and talk to me. If you know someone at this event that is a software engineer, please grab them and make them come talk to me. Data is important because right now every campaign just kind of throws things at the wall and sees what sticks. What we really need to be doing is using data as targeted campaigns that actually target people on an individual basis. I do another whole talk on this. I won't get into it. If you're going to try to win a campaign, there's 3 phases that you have to do: planning, voter ID, and get out the vote. Planning is generally until the time you pull papers. Voter ID is the main chunk, and get out the vote is literally like the weekend to voting day, right? So it's like 2, 3, 4 days. So let's work this backwards a little bit. And what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get you guys to understand that whether it's a campaign, whether it's a ballot initiative, whatever you're trying to do, you need to be kind of like a chess player and understand it's an end game. You have to have a plan. You have to have all of the pieces in place by the time you need to execute that plan in order to have a successful campaign. So, if to have a successful campaign, I need more votes than the other guy. To do that, I need to do things like giving them reminder calls to go out and vote, poll watching, and maybe even rides to the polls. But to do those things, well, I need volunteers, I need data, and I need money. So in order to have the list of people you're going to call on election day, you have to do a number of activities, voter ID activities, in order to do that. So for example, maybe you have to door knock, right? In order to door knock, you need to have data, you need to understand whose door you need to knock, and you need to understand, well, is that going to get you to vote for them, and does all those votes add up to a winning strategy? In order to do that, you need things like database and money. So everything is basically list, data, money. Well, what do I need to door knock? Well, to door knock, you're going to need things like push cards, right? To have push cards, you need to have your photos taken, money, and you have to have your issues, right? And notice all of this stuff up here has to be done before you pull your papers, right? So what you need to say is, hey, I have this goal, okay? I want to win an election. What do I need to do that? Strategy, right? Your strategy says, I've looked at the data and I need to knock 1,000 doors to win, right? So in order to knock the doors, you need to have things like push cards and your data. In order to have the push cards, you need to have the photos, issues, and money. And you need to have this stuff all lined up when you need to have it before you start in order to win. Do not, so many people will pull their papers on the last day with none of this stuff set up and think that they're going to win. If you do that, you're not going to win, and you're only going to be wasting people's time and money. So that's if you want to win. There are lots of times, when your goal isn't and shouldn't be to win, right? Sometimes you want to run an educational campaign. Well, and if you looked at that flow chart and you said, well, gee, I don't have any of that stuff, maybe you want to run an educational campaign to get that stuff. So, if you run an educational campaign, get every single bit of media you can possibly find. Go out there, spread the message. Build your lists, get volunteers, people who are going to do things for you, maybe some donors, and build your infrastructure, right? Build your website, build your Facebook, maybe get push cards if your issues aren't going to change, so you'll have that stuff in place for the next go around. Do not spend a bunch of money, and don't, you may not even want to ask for money, right? If you want an educational campaign, you don't want to go around spending people's hard-earned money on a campaign that is not going to win. And be honest with everybody. Tell everybody, listen, I'm just running an educational campaign. This is just to spread the message of liberty. That's all you have to say. And don't waste your volunteers' time. Don't waste it on sign holding. Don't waste it on stupid things that aren't going to work. Just do it on, gee, can you build me a website? Can you do any of the other stuff that you need to do? And most importantly, have lessons learned that you can take forward into your next campaign. I ran for city council. I learned a lot. Everybody I've talked to said, gee, I learned so much the first time I ran. And that's what you have to take everything as a learning experience. Videos. I'm not going to show it, but this is one guy who drones on for 7 minutes in a monotone voice, and it sounds like every single endless libertarian conversation you've ever had that lasts for 3 hours, and maybe has a point at the end. This is how you do it. Julie Borowski, token libertarian girl. I mean, this is really great. That first guy had 30 views on his YouTube. Short, to the point, discusses one topic, and is great, can get thrown on people's Facebook feeds, on their walls, and really is very consumable in today's society. And you'll notice, again, you'll see these like 2-hour or hour-long, like I'm going to explain libertarianism to you, and they have 100 views. You know, Julie Borowski's best video got 300,000 views. That's reaching many more people than that hour-long video. So, again, short and sweet, don't drone on endlessly, and narrate some of your videos. Oh, and edit them. Don't just throw some stuff up. You know, you can get things that will, if it's shaky, that will actually fix all of that stuff for you. Make them nice, edited. Now we get to civil disobedience. And I'll say this is where I will say I know the least about it, but I want to just take some things and I want to see if you guys can have the lessons learned, right? The Sun Tzu, understand yourself and your enemy, and let's apply some of these things, right? So the first thing you should ask yourself is, you know, what motivates all of these people, right? These people that I'm going to have to interact with, what motivates them? And what's going to work and what's not going to work? District attorneys. This is kind of interesting. They just want to have like a really good record, right? They're kind of like prize fighters. So if they want to get a ton of convictions with, you know, nobody getting off free, and plea deals, this is a victory for them. 95% of all court cases end in a plea deal. And so I see a lot of people who will go out and they'll do something and end up getting in trouble and getting arrested and going to court, and they have no idea how the process is going to work. Well, just this morning, there was a talk about, you know, what you should expect, you know. So maybe if you guys are going to go out and do things, again, I personally like to celebrate my freedom by like not being thrown in a cage, but some people for some reason want to get beat up, you know. So and I think people kind of think, oh well, I'm going to get beat up, and again somehow liberty is going to happen, and it's like we need a little less, you know, Messiah and a little bit more Braveheart, you know. So let's take a couple of people. Derek J, he's here today. I think I know him well enough that I can take a look and critique his this as a case study. So if you look at his movie, A Victimless Crime Spree, he went out and did a bunch of stuff. And he ended up taking a plea deal and serving some pretty good time in jail. And I think he didn't pay any court fees. I think he served more time in jail. But I asked him, I saw this at PorkFest, and I asked him, I said, well, why did you do all this? Like, there were some things where like the cops tried to drive him off the road. Why didn't you just like sue or something? Why did you do all of this stuff and then take the plea deal at the end? And he said, probably the best thing he could have said, he was like, well, I was just trying to figure it out. I didn't really know what to do. And he said he would do things much differently this time. And so let's not, again, the Ignite speech, let's not reinvent the wheel, right? Let's, you know, go and learn from the mistakes of other people and understand, you know, do one thing and then understand what's going to happen to you. How can you do this? I mean, there's an organization saying don't take the plea deal, right? Because obviously if they're pleading out, like my city, Lowell, Massachusetts, 99% of the court cases end in a plea deal. If people didn't take the plea deal, they couldn't handle that many cases. And so, but doing it once and doing it by yourself, is that going to make that much of a difference? No, but if you had 50 people all doing something that was, you know, ridiculous, that they weren't harming anybody, and all not taking the plea deal, well, gee, now you're kind of gumming up the system. But it has to be a planned action, it has to be thought out, and it has to be coordinated, and it has to be for some specific goal. Adam Kokesh. Again, we all know about the video. spent 103 days in jail, paid a bunch of court fees, yay for the prison industrial complex and all of that stuff. And, you know, he kind of said, well, I didn't think like, you know, I didn't think they were going to actually like raid my house. And it's like, Adam, you like sit around smoking bongs and like putting together film clips of like police brutality, and you know, you didn't think like any of those, you know, 50 raids that you just put together, like anybody was going to do that to you. So again, I see such a missed opportunity here, because let's play what if, right? Let's say what tactic could he have employed that maybe would have worked a little bit better, right? And I almost thought he was going to do this. I also almost thought there was something so Machiavellian that, you know, it would have been amazing. So, I mean, does anybody else think it's a little bit ridiculous that our government is, like, based upon videos you put up on YouTube, they're going to, like, raid you? What would have happened if this was green screened? What would have happened if he had gotten a really good, professionally done green screen, and the government had come in and raided him based upon this, right? And then, you know, could you imagine the outcry? You know, you could have said, well, gee, RoboCop has an illegal gun. Are you going to break down his door? I mean, there would have been such an outcry over this that, you know, the government would have been forced to modify its behavior. But again, it was that lack of planning, that lack of seeing an opportunity, creating a plan, and following that step-by-step plan. One thing he did fairly well, I don't want to criticize Adam too harshly, the Smokedown prohibition. Basically what happened was a cop went to grab somebody else, ran into him, and he ended up getting arrested for it. So this actually worked out really well. He spent some time in jail, but he refused to take a plea deal, and they said that they ended up pleading it down to citations, and they were literally like, okay, just sign these papers. And he refused to even sign them, and they just let him go. So he was able to achieve success, but what did he do? He had clear video evidence. He understood that he was going to lose unless he had a plan. And they even had backup cameras on their cameras in case their cameras got confiscated. So he had a plan, he was prepared, and he executed. So in short, don't just act, have a plan, assemble all of the components you need for that plan before you start acting, and then execute your plan with precision. And use data and grow the movement. I think that's about all the time I have, so thank you guys for listening. You've been wonderful.